Hey up everybody, and how are we all doing? I hope you're having a good evening as we speak. Anyway, I've been reading a couple of stories which I saw pop up the other day, quite interesting. And I think again, I've spoken about in the past about what I've described as being salami slicing. For those of you who don't understand what that term is, just to give you a quick history of it, it's an old Soviet term, which basically came about as a way of adjusting countries or cultures by slowly taking away piece by piece, little bits at a time. So no individual can ever point to one specific moment in time or history and say that right there, that was the moment when things changed. And it gives basically plausible deniability. It's almost a form of cultural gaslighting on a population, just constantly chipping away. A bit like death by a thousand cuts, where you can't say to a person that specific cut there was the one that killed the victim. It's the culmination of the whole thousand cuts that kills a person, and it's the same with what's happening with our culture at the moment. So one of these stories that I read, it's about the stopping of a clock bell tower chiming, which had been chiming for about 150 years. Now it was doing it every the complainant, and the complainant hasn't been named. They are a mystery individual. Did complain, saying that it was excessive, the amount that the clock tower was chiming. I believe it was every 15 minutes. Now, I personally do think that is excessive. But, and this is the most important part here, I would not buy a house next to that church. And now this individual, and now I'm speculating here, this is purely my own intuition at this point, and I have no evidence to back this up other than, well, trust me, bro. But basically, I believe, and it is quite a picturesque village where this has happened, and it's in Devon. So I do believe that this will be quite an exclusive place to live and buy, and I firmly believe that a person has visited the property and bought it because they believe it to be lovely, and then afterwards has then decided, I don't like this clock tower chiming, and has then chided in and stuck their oar into what is a tradition in the village. I don't think it should be allowed, and the fact that Devon Council have come down and got themselves involved again, this shows the massive overreach and power that government has in what are effectively local issues. I don't think that the council absolutely have any place to be deciding this. This is purely a local issue and should really come down to the votes of all people living in the village. And quite really, if you don't like it, well, sell your house and leave, because there's lots of other people who would like to live there. But no, and really, it's part of the narcissism in our society. And the self-entitlement that people have. We basically live in a society, and this comes down to multiculturalism really, and mass immigration. We now live in a society of atomised individuals who are all basically living their own way, doing their own thing. There's no sort of group sense, there's no overarching society. There's no, how best to put it, there's no mythos really for the entire of society to bind us all together. So with things like, say, the tradition of a church clock going every 15 minutes in a village, because that's what that village does, you get somebody moving in from somewhere else where that doesn't happen. It's like, well, we don't do that where I come from, and my individual rights matter. So stuff your traditions, because the individual is primacy now, and that's the way our society is at this point. Individual rights and necessities trump everything else, and that's the point we've got to. Now, they have, to be fair as well, to play a bit of devil's advocate with this, they have sort of come to a bit of a mediation, which is the clock is allowed to chime between, I believe it's 7 in the morning, 11 o'clock at night, and then they've had to install a silencer to the bell at the cost of about £2,000. But I don't think that should have happened. If that clock has been chiming every 15 minutes, 24 hours a day, for the last 150 years, I'm afraid that it should get historic precedence over what anybody says or thinks at this point. And as I said earlier, if you don't like it, sell your house and move somewhere else where it's quieter. It's that simple. Now, another story I've seen has been that the Church of England, the diocese in York, is after it, and I'm going to find the actual proper title for this. The diocese is seeking a racial justice enabler. Now, that doesn't sound subversive at all, does it? And lo and behold, this job is absolutely not open to anybody of white descent, although they haven't specifically stated that. The devil is in the detail, pun intended. Let's find where it says. What it is the successful candidate will have a passion for racial justice and radical hospitality born out of lived experience. Now, what does that all mean? Well, really, it's a word salad, which means whites need not apply, in my opinion, just to be clear. What is lived experience? I've got lived experience. I'm sure you've got lived experience. Heck, even my 5-year-old son has got his own lived experience, and he's the youngest person in my family. So what does lived experience mean? Well, what it means is being a person from a minority group is what it means. That is code for minority. And it's just jargon at the end of the day. It's designed to obfuscate and bamboozle people. The whole thing is a real passion for racial justice. Well, I'm sure neo-Nazis have got a real passion for racial justice, just not the racial justice that some other people would want. What does that actually mean? Passion for racial justice. Radical hospitality. Well, that in itself is an oxymoron. How can you be radical and hospitable? You can't. Those two just do not go. It is literally just new age jargon. This was probably created by somebody who's got a degree in some crazyology, some sort of social studies or some sort of grievance studies. Like feminist studies or some rubbish like that. Where they. Oh, I'm not even going to go down that rabbit hole because it's just absolutely insane, that sort of stuff. It makes a good point in this article as well about how the actual Diocese of York itself only has 3% of the population of what it describes as global majority heritage. What does that mean, global majority heritage? So what that says to me is that they are saying you're either white or you're everybody else. And everybody else is clearly just this great big dumping ground where there's no difference between any of those people. Whether you're from Nigeria or you're from Egypt or you're from China or you're from you're an Aboriginal from Australia or you're from Latin America, or you're from one of the Mediterranean islands, all just the same. Or completely interchangeable people, no discernible differences in any of their cultures, values, or traditions. There is absolutely no. You could line them all up together and not be able to tell the difference between any of them or tell what part of the world they're from. Absolutely no chance at all. Yeah, crazy, absolute madness. What global majority heritage? That in and of itself is a really racist term when you think about it, because as I say, it just means that there is just no difference between anybody else in the world. You're either white or you're the other. And really, what that says as well is white is the default. Because everybody else is just bundled into that other thing. It's just crazy. Absolutely crazy language. It's just, again, this is, again, just a salami slicing, again, because this is going to go to, obviously, a minority person. What else is it saying here? This was another good point of it as well. It says, the 13 qualities the enabler will need to exhibit. Only 2 refer specifically to Christianity. So, you've got 11 other things that it's asking for, which have got no relevance to Christianity whatsoever. That is absolutely crazy. This is the salami slicing of society and of culture in this country, where you can't say, well, cancelling. What difference does cancelling that church bell make? In the great big grand scheme of things, it doesn't make anything. But it's the culmination of all these little things getting chipped away, where suddenly you just end up with a blank slate country where it's just a bunch of fields and trees and a bunch of people who all agree that food is good and we support the red team in sports ball, and that's it. Because you're not going to be allowed to have any other opinions, because that will be deemed racist or offensive or divisive or subversive. This is the problem. We're just becoming the UK is just becoming a wealth extraction zone for the rest of the world to turn up for. And either you're going to come here as a highly educated person, work in an industry, extract enough wealth for yourself to then go back to wherever you call home, or you're going to be from some very, very poor country. You're probably going to be completely illiterate in your own language. You're going to bring your 12 kids over with you, and then you're just going to sit in a council-provided house for the rest of your life and then claim your pension until you die. And your kids are going to do the same. Again, just extracting wealth from everybody else. And I think that's by design as well, by the way. I do think that there is a cabal of people, globalist type people who are working in various industries and banks, and they see themselves as a borderless nation, and they have absolutely no loyalty. So when you see people, and I'm not saying it specifically, but Rishi Sunak, I think, is a great example of that. His wife is a non-dom. He's already got paperwork in to move to America. He's got a job lined up there already. His parents came from, I think it was Kenya or somewhere like that. He's a global citizen of nowhere, loyalty only to the bank balance. These people. So they don't see culture, values, traditions as anything relevant because they can't put a price against it. You know, they just they just see human beings as interchangeable economic units, and that's all they view us all as. Which is why when they see people like me and most of you who are watching this complain about this sort of stuff, they see us as a problem which just needs to be steamrolled and pushed out of the way. Which is why they spent so long trying to demoralise us and destroy in any way that we have of actually unionising against this. And that's something that we really need to do. And I have banged on about it in the past, and I'll mention it now. We need to get organised, because the organised minority always crushes the disorganised majority, and that's what we're seeing happening right now. It's why mass immigration is happening, because these people who have managed to get themselves into these positions of influence in the country, whether that be running the civil service, whether that be being MPs, you know, they don't have to exactly know each other, but they all share the same ideas, they all frequent the same sort of areas, they all meet with each other, or people, you know, they're all like 1 or 2 degrees of separation from each other. You know, they're ideologically very incestuous, you know, so they don't need to be in a sort of formalized conspiracy. They just all need to sort of signal to each other, this is what we're doing, and they all get along with it. And we've got to organise against that. Otherwise, we are just going to be pushed out of the way, and they're going to replace us in the UK, as we are currently seeing. Anyway, I'm going to leave it at that. I just thought they were two good quick examples of the salami slicing of our culture. And I just think these things need highlighting to people to help other people who may not be quite as observant, just to know what to spot and how to vocalise it as well, because for a long time I struggled with being able to actually explain my point. And you'd get these people who've been to university and they spent a lot of time training how to berate you on these sorts of topics, and it is very, very difficult if you don't have the linguistic skills on how to challenge them. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. If you found that insightful, interesting, or any of that other good stuff, please do like, subscribe, and definitely put a comment below. I love hearing from you, and it's one of my favourite parts, to be honest with you, is having a bit of to and fro with people in the comments. I'll leave it at that. Take care. Goodbye.